Yeah, there's three places I want to go with that. You're making me think of these t-shirts I've seen, like America versus the world. I've seen that as a tagline. But where does the drive for competition come from? Like there's one kind of military theory I read, which was conflict emerges when there are two visions for the future that are inconsistent or incompatible. Talk to us about what drives, because I can observe that there was less competition, more interdependence, and now there is more, but like, why?
Oh man, if we could solve that, we would have produced an incredible theoretical breakthrough. There are a lot of different perspectives in terms of what drives competition. If we're just being really practical, there are a few ways to look at it. One is that in the 1990s, right after the end of the Cold War, the Russia that emerged from the Soviet Union actively was pursuing integration with the West. They wanted to be a democratic capitalist country that was part of Western institutions. China wanted to be integrated with the West economically, but never really sought democracy. So both Russia and China spent a lot of effort trying to get into the World Trade Organization. Russia was pursuing closer ties with the European Union. China never really moved in the democratic direction, but was trying for economic interdependence. I think what happened was that once both countries regained their footing economically, after China entered the WTO and Russia had rebuilt its economy on the backs of this commodities boom that happened in the first decade of the 21st century when oil prices went up by tenfold in 10 years, which is essential to rebuilding Russian strength after the Cold War. I think once both countries became strong economically, neither of which had developed in a democratic direction, which was not super surprising for China in retrospect because they never explicitly wanted that. Russia, a little surprising because they did want it. And some of the other former communist countries like Poland did become functional democracies. I think once they regained their economic strength, they started looking around and saying, we want the geopolitical environment to reflect that strength that we have. For Russia, that means having a sphere of influence in its neighborhood. During the 90s and 2000s, the countries in its neighborhood gravitated to the West. Many joined the EU and NATO. You think about the Baltic states, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia had become members of both the EU and NATO. Countries like Ukraine and Georgia wanted to be part of both the EU and NATO, and were moving in that direction. Russia's geopolitical designs ran into the aspirations of the countries that had previously been in its sphere of influence. And I think with China, you've seen a similar process. The countries in China's neighborhood are even stronger than the ones in Russia's neighborhood. You've got countries like Japan and Korea, which are substantial economic and technological powers. It's been a very long time since either of them has been under the hegemony of China. Aspirations for a sphere of influence in its neighborhood in the East and South China Sea bumped up against Japan, Korea, India, and the Philippines. This is the fundamental problem of international relations when you have different countries that have different perspectives of what they want. It's not abnormal for countries to want to chart their own geopolitical future. It's harder when you have an aspiring hegemon like China or Russia seeking to assert dominance over other countries. Historically, the way you do that is through military conquest. That's hard when you're in an era of nuclear weapons and where the US is still by far the most powerful military on the face of the earth.